So feeling the dantian, so your center, your singularity, and feel the 2 feet, your 2 roots that pass into the ground from each foot. Start taking it to the extreme. Really push yourself in this direction with this leg. And then release this tension here, and the leg will pull back. So this is stretched, and then it starts pulling. And at the end of that, this starts pushing to make sure everything is here. And then this pulls, and then this pushes. The empty leg has to work to become totally empty. Now let's try some of the breathing. What we want to do is get the 2 sets of muscles, one set folding me one way, the other set folding me the other, so the belly and the lower back, and get them really knitting in together so the whole thing behaves as like a unit, a breathing unit. So the 2 phases are pulling the belly in and then tensing the lower back to arch backwards. But I want them to really knit together. So let's just try. So I pull in, feel the back muscles beginning to stretch, and then just let the back muscles pull back. They really tighten. That stretches the belly muscles, and then I just allow the belly muscles to pull back. So the two phases are very much overlapping. So here the back is obviously working, but I'm feeling the stretch in my belly muscles, which are really being pulled. And then I tighten these up, and that pulls me back. And now here, it's my belly that's really tightening, but I feel the stretch in my lower back. And then I let the lower back muscles kick in. So I'm tightening one muscle to the extreme in order to stimulate the muscle the other side to activate. The visualization I use is just imagining that I'm in the pool. So I'm having to do this against the resistance of the water. Here, I'm really having to use the back muscles to displace the water. And then here, oh, really tighten my belly muscles to pull my arms forwards. Your mind is creating the resistance that makes the action of the body meaningful. This is why people don't like meditation, because time drags. You feel each second as it ticks by. We're so used to having the mind occupied so that time goes a bit more quickly. I want to feel every centimeter of the movement. Back to riding horse. what we would like is that especially with the legs, when I use the legs similarly to how I was using my torso in that breathing exercise. So really knitting the two sets of muscles, the front and the back, together so that the whole thing can just work as one unit. It's difficult with the legs because one works and then the other works, so that one tends to rest while the other one is working. So let's just try moving side to side, but just using one leg. So here I'm using this leg to push myself in this direction, and then I just bend this leg and that will pull me back in this direction. And then I push with this leg and that will move me this way. And then I bend it. So I'm just using my left leg in order to get this movement. So pushing and pulling. Feel the muscles. So I'm tensing my thigh here. I'm shortening this muscle to straighten the leg. And then I'm tensing the hamstring or the leg bicep to bend the leg. I really want to feel the muscles working, especially on the bending phase, because that's the phase that we tend not to be used to because we don't really use it in our normal life. So I pull here and then I push. So what will make it start working is your sinking. You're carrying like a heavy weight. You're really being pressed down. Let's just try just a little bit with the arm. Because if you can feel it in the arm, you'll catch it in the leg. My left arm. So I can bend it using the bicep and I can straighten it using the tricep. So what I want to do is just create some resistance to that so I can feel the two muscles knit together. Using your other arm, I just resist this movement. So all I'm going to do is bend my arm like this. And I just use this hand to try and hold it. So I'm really tensing that bicep to pull the fist up. And then I slip this hand underneath and then really tense the tricep to straighten. This hand is creating resistance to both movements. So I'm trying to do this. This hand is trying to stop it from moving. Hand on your wrist. That's it. So I'm pushing with this hand in that direction, as I'm bending the arm in this direction. I'm just judging the pressure so that this hand will just about move. So it's really having to work hard to pull up. And then keeping the tension in the left arm, I slip the resisting hand underneath, so the back of my wrist, and then I push, I straighten the arm against it, and then move it to the front. So what I'm trying to do is get these two movements to just knit together, so there's no break, there's no relaxation as one phase turns into the other. So I have to slip the resisting hand under at the right time. So there's no break. Now I just want to get into it. So just relax into it. And then that system, the two muscles knit together, starts to behave like a ring muscle and will stimulate the other muscles in the body, the other ring muscles especially, but also any binary pair of muscles that have been knit together by your mind. And then let's try it with the leg again. So I pull here and I push here. I pull and I push. So the feeling is that I'm pushing, straightening the leg with this muscle. And whilst it's still straightening, I let the other muscle kick in behind to try and bend. So there's a point where they're both working against each other, and it's that that stops this one working. So I'm straightening my leg here, and then the back muscle starts bending, and then the front muscle starts straightening. So there's no stop and start. So I want to feel that when I use a muscle, there's always resistance to that. Like when you're in the pool, you try walking in the pool, it's quite difficult because the water is resisting you, but I want the sense that it's my own body that's resisting me. This leg is straightening, but it's also trying to bend. And at some point that bending is stronger than the straightening and it takes me back. And then the straightening becomes stronger. So the leg is straightening and bending all the time. Both phases are there all the time. They just change in intensity. So I'm straightening the leg because the straightening is stronger than the bending, but the bending is still there, and then the bending takes over. before we do the other leg, let's just try, just release it now. So just turning. So we're reconditioning the body. So there's two aspects to that. There's relaxing, so letting go of the tensions of the bad use, the bad habits that we've grown accustomed to. And then there's the good tension, learning to use the body correctly. So that's what we've just been doing, that getting the two phases operating. And now let's try that exercise we were doing before with the leg, but now using my right leg. So I'm going to straighten the right leg, and that will push me in this direction. And then right at the end of the straightening, I let the bending kick in, and that will pull me. And now I straighten the leg. So I'm only using my right leg to move myself. The other leg is supporting me, but it's not active. So I straighten the leg and I bend the leg. So here, as it bends and bends and bends, you can feel that it's wanting to straighten. It wants to explode out of that. That's all it is, really. I'm bending it, and then I wait for that desire to straighten is strong enough to actually push me back. And now it's wanting to bend because it's just got too straight. So I let that bend pull me back. Now it's got too bent, it wants to straighten. And so it straightens. So this is the play of yin and yang. This is what we're investigating in Tai Chi, really. Pulls back, then it gets really compressed and stored all that energy, and then that can explode outwards. And now it's still stuck to the ground, so it can't keep on going, so it has to pull back. It's the same as that breathing action. The leg is breathing the same way that my torso was breathing when I do the breathing exercise. Again, the more I can sink, the more imaginary pressure I can imagine pushing me down, the stronger I will feel these actions. Until eventually, if you really sink, you can't move because gravity has just pinned you to the spot. Now, let's just try just a little bit with this arm. Same action, the same as what we did with this arm. So I'm just going to bend the arm using the bicep, and I'm going to straighten the arm using the tricep. And I'm going to use my left hand to try and resist that. So my left hand on top of my wrist. And then I just bend slowly that right arm using my left hand to resist that. Now, before I've reached quite the top, I have to slip the hand underneath to the back of my wrist to start pushing it this way so that the tricep has some resistance. So I have to slide the resisting hand exactly the right time so that this movement back and forth is continuous. There's no break. It doesn't stop in order to change direction. It's a loop. It's like the figure of eight. The figure of eight just creates a loop so that the backwards and the forwards can seem like one movement. It's the same here. And so at that point of changing direction, you really have to concentrate. Otherwise, you'll lose the coordination between the two hands and there'll be a break. This is what we want to feel. That point of change, which we normally take as like a little break or a little holiday, is actually a point of real heightened intensity, simply to keep the holiday out, keep the work continuous, keep that thread of golden time unbroken. Just try again with the leg. Straightening the leg, and I'm bending the leg. Just want to feel like it's really hard work. You're working hard and you're not quite sure why, because There isn't any resistance. You're just creating it with your mind. So here I really feel, this is how I work in my classes. We resist each other. So I will be doing pushing back and the other person is trying to push me here, stop me from moving. So I really have to push hard. And then here they'll be pushing here and I really have to pull against that. Just using resistance to make it real. So it doesn't just slide and slip and drift. Every centimeter, every millimeter, I'm really having to work. Feel the turn. So as I straighten the leg, it will tend to turn me this way. It'll turn into a back leg. And then when I bend the leg, it will tend to pull me around and it will become a front leg. So this action of the leg, pushing and pulling, is also turning me. And now let's try just the exercise again, this exercise of turning. So knocking the gate of lie. But now just using the one leg to turn me. So I'm going to straighten this leg and that's going to turn me this way. And then I'm going to bend the leg and it will turn me this way. Straightening and bending. I'm just trying to keep my spine in the middle. And it's that that forces the turn. So it's the same exercise, just knocking the gates of life. I'm just using the one leg to move myself. I want to feel how the legs are responsible for my turning. It's not so obvious when we're doing it. I mean, when you think about it, the turn must be coming from your legs because, you know, your feet are on the ground. That's your reference. That's your still reference. Now here I really want to feel it. This leg is pushing and straightening, and that's driving this hip round. And then the leg bends and that pulls it this way. This is really difficult because you have to really concentrate. So when we turn, we tend to use that as a holiday as well. You know, it's a bit like being on a swing. You know, you just relax into it and just let yourself just swing. So I want to be able to really keep my mind on the job and just feel where the action is coming from. It's coming from this leg, bending, really tightening, and then that has to unravel. And then that goes a bit too far, so it then has to bend again. And now let's try the same thing, but with the other leg. So now I'm straightening my left leg, and then I bend the left leg. as we would normally do it, just turning side to side, but now just trying to feel the turning coming from your 2 feet, the action of your 2 legs working the ground beneath your feet. So this leg is straightening, this leg is bending. Then this leg starts bending and this leg straightens. So now they're working together, which tends to cloud it a little bit. It's more difficult to feel in a way. But this is the way it would happen when you are moving around in normal life. So it's often easier if you just concentrate on like the bending phase or the straightening phase. So this leg is bending, and then this leg is bending. And now let's concentrate on the 2 straightening phases. So this leg is straightening, and then this leg is straightening. So this is easier because you just push into the ground, you push yourself round. Bring it to riding horse. Now let's try turning again. And now concentrating on the point where the totally straight leg starts to bend. This is the place where we would like to have our attention most of the time. It's like if you were picking the apple. You know, so what you'd want to make sure is that you didn't drop it because it would bruise and then be ruined. So you'd reach, your hand would wrap around that apple, and then you would pluck it. And then it's ready to consume. And the same as when you're walking. So your foot would go out, you'd catch the ground, and then the other leg could go out. So this is the point that we would like to have our attention, where the straight becomes bent. So I straighten this leg, and then it bends. I straighten this leg, and then it bends. So this tends to be how we move side to side at the beginning of the classes, but now I'm letting it turn me as well. This straightens, and then it plucks, it bends. And I want to feel that bending as really being like a pluck, like I've caught something. I pulled myself into that foot. And then you can just get it, the normal exercise, but with that feeling. This is straightening and then bending, straightening and bending. And we want to feel it in the spirit. What's it doing to the spirit? It's like if you're going to reach for that apple or the box of chocolates. Your spirit would be active, would be lively and expectant as your hand was reaching out to catch that prize. And then there would be a sense of achievement and satisfaction as you plucked it and brought it in. It's exactly the same with the feet on the ground. So here I'm straightening the leg. So there's a sense of, ooh, something is opening up. And then I catch and I pull into it. So it's like it closes down. There's an opening and a closing every time you change direction, either moving side to side, back and forth, or with the turning. And now bringing the feet up. So now what I want to do now is just really alternate the feet. So I just lift one heel and then I bring it down, and as soon as it touches the ground, the other heel peels up. So what I want to feel is as the heel goes down, my weight really settles into that heel, and that allows the other heel to come up. So I only have one root at a time. The root is a sense of something having extended into the ground from your heel, like a needle. So here my foot goes down, and as my weight comes into it, if my mind is sufficiently trained, disciplined, quiet, then I sense that weight as being like a needle that's penetrating into the ground. So the heel goes down, there's a needle that goes down. That allows the other foot to be free because you only need one root. In fact, your root is better if you've only got one, because when you've got them both, they tend to sort of conflict a little. And then this one goes down. I really settle into, I sit down into that heel, and that allows the other heel to come off the ground. But this is what I want to feel. The needle goes into the ground. It's like I'm injecting my weight into the ground. And it's difficult, this, because it's very much two minds. The mind that's with this side of my body is going into the ground deep, whereas this mind is coming up. And it's just difficult. But this is the way the body and the mind wants to work. If the mind wasn't so intent on thinking, then this is how it would tend to work. It would be with the body. Your body would simply be a physical image of the mind. There'd be no real difference between them. Sink into this here. This is what I want to catch, is that feeling of the needle coming out of the body and sticking into the ground through the heel. So my spine needs to be really well adjusted, sorted out. So the exercises that we do when we're sitting down, like with the stick and with the reaching, it's really good for this. Because without the spine being relatively clear, you just can't get that extension. You won't develop a root. So students, they often ask, how do you feel the root? How does it feel when you feel it? I tend to be reluctant to say, because it changes depending upon your level. And also, if I say something and they don't feel it, they get demoralized, because everyone feels it differently. But it is a sense that something is passed into the ground from your own body, from your energy, really. Your weight is like an aspect of your energy that's sort of congealing and just becoming this metallic needle that penetrates down. And it's the root going into the ground that enables the other foot to come off the ground without me losing my balance too much. So a real sense of down and up at the two different halves of the body. And now let's try, it's a little bit of just going backwards and forwards, but now just feeling that. So I'm in this foot to start with. So very much a sense that this needle has gone down, or almost like I can lower my spine down through a little hole in my heel. And then I come into this foot and I catch this heel. And in order to get this heel well, just allow the back heel to come off the ground. And then as I transfer the weight back, this heel goes down, and then this heel can come up. So I'm doing the same exercise, really. One heel up, one heel down, but now going backwards and forwards rather than simply side to side. So the back heel comes up, and then the front heel comes up. So I'm really sinking down into this heel. That enables this heel to come up. Then I really sit down into this back heel. That enables this heel to come up. And now as you go back, instead of lifting the heel, which is difficult, it's a bit unnatural to sort of pull this heel off the ground. Just allow the toes to come up. So now it's just the back of your heel on the ground. And it's the same thing really, because it's really the middle of your heel where the root comes out of. And I've taken that off the ground. I've just taken my toes up as well. And then I sink into this foot. The root goes down the middle of the heel. Now just lifting the heel off the ground here, then this heel goes back down. And now I just lift the front of the foot. I'm only really lifting the heel or the front of the foot to help the root descend through the other foot. Now let's try the other foot forwards. So to start with, heel and lift the other heel. Rooting through the heel, lifting this heel. And then just bringing the front of the foot off the ground, but it does feel quite different. So just register that. It's like white crane and lifting hands. The feet feel so different. I have to see it with my mind. I have to see this root going down, and then I have to see this root. And the feeling that it would happen naturally if your mind was just more quiet and your body was more pure, more clear, then this would be exactly what would be happening. This is the skill we need to develop. You know, what would happen if I was just a little bit more advanced? You can get a sense of that. I mean, this is the teacher's job in a way, to show you what you should be doing if only you were a little bit better. But you can feel it yourself. And now let's try the same thing, but now with the stepping. So it's exactly the same. I just send the root down, inject into the ground from my heel, enables this foot to come up, and then this foot can step. So let's just try putting the toes down first. And then as I settle slowly and gently into the front heel, that roots, and then the back heel can just come up. And then I transfer the weight. Front heel comes off the ground, I step. And then as the back heel now goes down, this heel comes up. So this is where it's easier to feel, really. And this is happening throughout the form. Whenever you step in the form or transfer your weight, you can feel this, you can work on it. Injection, release, inject, release. As one needle goes down, the other one comes up. And like everything else we do, as soon as you get the two sides of the body alternating well, then it just becomes the figure of eight exercise. So the root going into the ground is like the bottom of the figure of eight. It really dips down into the ground in order to dredge something up as it rises to the top. Very much like the hypodermic. The hypodermic can inject a fluid, but it can also suck. It can also draw blood. So here I'm injecting something into the ground, and then as the weight starts moving out of it, it's sucking something up. The quieter your mind, the more able you are to concentrate, the sharper that needle will be, the finer it will be when it passes into the ground. If your mind is a bit distracted, or if you're just doing it for relaxation, just going through the motions a bit, then it will just be a general feeling of sinking. You won't penetrate the way you can when everything is working finely. And now just what we started with, just the heels up and down, coordinating them. So as one goes down and sinks into the ground, the other one comes up. And just getting a looseness in the hips. And now just like a very slow jog. So let's just bring it to riding horse. Feel your dantian. Feel the sacrum, just opposite the dantian. Feel the ground underneath your feet. So what we say is the body springs from the ground. So I could pounce. I could just straighten my legs and just leap forwards. So that's the body working well. But the mind springs from the dantian. So when I look out, when I show interest, it's coming from here. It's not coming from here. It's sincere. The head never is. It may try to be, but it will mess it up. So you don't get into the dantian with your mind by sort of looking down into it and getting anxious. Oh, am I in the dantian? It's just, you're just free. You're just out and looking and attentive. But this is where the source of that is. You're coming from the seat of your feelings and you're bringing all of your sense impressions back into there. So this is your center, your home, but it's also the place of rumination. Nietzsche had this great insight. He said, people don't ruminate anymore. They don't bring things in and just let them stew inside so that they can become creations, really. This is what we want to do. A sense that everything that comes into me is not coming into my head for processing and thinking and anxiety. It's coming into my belly. I'm feeding all the time. Now let's bring it up into attention. Making sure the legs don't lock. So all the time, this is sort of going on in the background, or you can always slip into it really easily. There's always a sense that you're bouncing between the two legs a little bit. And that's producing like a shimmer. So someone looks at you, you shouldn't be too clear. You're not the stillness of a stone statue. It's like an average. But within yourself, there's a hell of a lot of movement going on.